crowning ceremony. But what Caryn didn't know was this. Amy Roloff had already written the ending of this story 10 years ago. Long before the battles, the cameras, or the whispers in the farmhouse hallways. And now, in a silent room where destinies are sealed and dynasties are decided, a single forgotten document was preparing to erupt like a time bomb. Caryn, the ever-faithful partner, the shadow beside Matt Roloff, was moments away from becoming the undisputed queen of the Roloff empire. Matt's new will was supposed to be her victory anthem, the legal decree that would sweep away Amy's legacy and silence the children who grew up on that soil. But destiny had other plans. Just as the final verdict was about to be read, a ghost from the past rose, carrying a contract forged not out of love, but out of strategy, heartbreak, and molten fire. A contract that whispered one truth. Amy Roloff had never been playing fair, she had been playing smart. While everyone else played checkers, Amy had been playing grandmaster chess. And now, the final piece was about to be moved. This is the chapter you've been waiting for. The untold climax of Little People, Big World. A tale of promises, power, betrayal, and a final twist no one saw coming. Based on insider whispers, exclusive theories, and carefully connected dots, we present to you the showdown that rewrites everything you thought you knew. So, if you want every shock, every twist, every revelation, hit that like button, subscribe to Motion 24, and ring the notification bell. Because trust me, you don't want to miss a single second of this story. Gray and gloomy weather befitting an era's end greeted the day of the will reading. The conference room of the esteemed Portland legal company was filled with a poisonous concoction of sadness, animosity, and barely hidden expectation. The shattered bones of the Roloff clan were arranged around the gleaming mahogany table. With a look of exhausted resignation on their faces, Zach and Torre had been bracing themselves for this hit for years. Optimists at heart, Jeremy and Audrey held out hope that their father would spare them the ultimate betrayal. Even though their faces couldn't be read, Molly and Jacob's presence carried a great burden as they stood silently as witnesses to their family's collapse. Caryn Chandler was seated across from them. Wearing an elegant black gown, she exhibited the epitome of dignified grief as she tenderly wiped a single tear from her eye with a spotless handkerchief. However, her anguish was an act, a carefully constructed front. The jubilant hum of victory buzzed in her head despite the veil of sadness. She would feel validated today. Everything she had worked over the past few years, managing Matt, ignoring his ex-wife and kids, would finally pay off today. The vast, famous, and worth millions of dollars Roloff Farms would be hers. Everything, the reputation, the legacy, the wealth. She was victorious after playing the long game. Furthermore, Amy Roloff was present. Sitting calmly and quietly, she was just off to one side of her children. She wasn't sobbing or fidgeting with her hands. Anyone who paid attention could feel her profound serenity, a quietness that was unnerving. Caryn quickly brushed it off as shock. The last admission of her whole and total loss. It was a catastrophic error in judgment. Amy waited calmly, not in a state of horror. She had been planning this whole thing for a decade, and now she was only waiting for her nemesis to step into a trap she had laid. In the uncomfortable stillness, the sound of Mr. Albright's throat clearing sounded abnormally loud. He was an estate lawyer. With his spectacles fine-tuned, he unwrapped the document that may change their lives forever. The speaker started off by saying, "We are assembled here today to read the final will and testament of Matthew James Roloff." His voice had a monotone quality to it. In a setting so empty of love, he delivered the customary legal preamble about Matt's last desires and his love for his family, which felt like a terrible joke. The kids were getting ready. The hammer blow followed. The dispositive sections were read by Mr. Albright in a clear and impersonal voice. "My love and aspiration for my 4 children, Zachary, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob, are with them as they go out into the world. I have always been there for them, and I have faith in their abilities to be successful on their own. A chilly, professional reprimand. A verbal slap on the head as the knife was inserted between their ribs characterized the discharge. The kids reacted as if they were hit. A pulsating muscle in Zach's cheek caused his jaw to clench. Under the table, Tori felt for his hand. The coronation follows. As for the entirety of my remaining estate, the attorney continued, including all real and personal property, all shares and interests in Roloff Farms LLC, the Roloff Company, and all associated business entities, and the entirety of my financial accounts, investments, and personal fortune, I bequeath, without reservation or condition, to my devoted partner and companion, Caryn Chandler. Words weighed heavy in the air, depleting the room of oxygen. We finished. It was true. He had done it. He had entirely and totally disinherited them all. Everyone held the woman responsible for their family's disintegration. The woman, full ownership of the farm, their birthright, their home, and the land their hands had helped create. Caryn was just brilliant. She pretended to be shocked and gasped, her hand shooting to her chest, whispering something along the lines of, "Oh, Matt." Her voice was visibly affected. I had no idea. For an instant, though, her eyes betrayed her. They gleamed with a chilly, steely victory. A message of complete domination was conveyed in her brief gaze across the table at Amy and the children. A checkmate has been achieved. I win. The fundamental deception that led them to this point was one that Matt had propagated for years with great regularity, a story that Caryn had cultivated and turned into a weapon. The idea that Matt has the absolute authority to sell the farm to anybody he pleased. It was common for him to yell out, "I bought Amy out," during interviews and as the show ran. "This farm is now mine. The deed has my name." In the face of charges that he was betraying his children by taking their inheritance, this proclamation served as his defense. From what we can gather from our inside sources, this was Caryn's well-planned strategy, not merely a conviction of Matt's. Claiming to have spent years trying to drive a wedge between Matt and his children, she portrayed their interest in inheriting the farm as a nefarious attempt to enrich themselves at the expense of Matt's legacy. "They're entitled," she allegedly would tell him, according to sources. "Your hard work is going unappreciated. A handout is all they desire." The discussions with Zach and Jeremy, which ultimately failed, were the high point of this story. Since no one else could comprehend Matt's vision, she presented herself as his savior and heir apparent. She managed to persuade him that his sons were unworthy, called their offers offensive, and lacked the tenacity to manage the farm the way he had. The subtly disappointed tone used to wrap the untruth made it all the more sinister. It helped Matt see his own selfishness in a new light. As a father delivering a harsh lesson to his sons about the realities of life, rather than as an immoral and unneeded business choice. However, the truth had been lying dormant for 10 years, a fundamental, decaying untruth that had long been disregarded. The truth was that Matt wasn't the only one who could give up the property. It was a strength that we cultivated as a couple over the course of 30 years of hardship, sacrifice, and cooperation with Amy. Even Amy, who is reserved and underappreciated, had never forgotten that. She had anticipated a day like this one, when Matt's irrevocable mistake could be caused by his impaired judgment due to illness and another factor. There was a heavy sense of aftermath from reading the will back at the lawyer's office. Zach stood up straight, an expression of rage covering his face. His voice quivered with anger as he said, "This is a joke. What comes next? Following every assurance? Does he abandon her completely?" An expression of profound, soul-deep disappointment crossed Jeremy's face as he merely shook his head. Even though she was attempting to console him, Audrey couldn't help but cry tears of amazement. At the same time, Caryn was acting out the role of the unexpected but polite inheritor as she accepted Mr. Albright's sympathies. "I will make every effort to pay tribute to his memory," she stated, her voice betraying her true feelings of modesty. The farm will be taken care of by me. It's in keeping with his wishes. Roloff Farms, Caryn Chandler, proprietor. The new entry sign had already begun to shape her future aspirations. The enormous house's family portraits were swapped out for her own, thereby erasing Amy Roloff from existence. When the spotlight finally fell on Amy, her children's expressions revealed a mix of bewilderment and a glimmer of forlorn hope. I really doubt she would just sit on her hands about this. It was almost as if she was waiting to speak. With a mischievous grin teasing her lips, Caryn observed her, as if tempting her to unleash her fury, shed tears, or cause a disturbance. It would accentuate the sweetness of her triumph. However, Amy did not do any of those things. She looked directly into her children's eyes and nodded subtly to reassure them. After that, she stopped paying attention to Caryn and Zach, who was furious, and started paying attention to her own lawyer, an ordinary woman named Ms. Davis, who had been sitting quietly by her side the whole time. With one thoughtful nod, Amy met Ms. Davis's gaze. A signal it was. The match was far from over. The monarch was on the verge of taking action. A decade of calculated calmness had led up to this serene moment. Going back to the worst days of the Roloff divorce will help us appreciate its force. According to exclusive theories that delve into the family's past, the last discussions were extremely harsh. With his new life with Caryn just around the corner, Matt was hoping for a clean break. In a public relations blitz, he offered to buy out Amy's share of the farm. He merely desired its conclusion. On one point, though, Amy was unwavering. Focusing on the future was more important than amassing more wealth or diversifying investments. The subject was legacy. Those who were close to the talks at the time said that Amy was terrified of something quite specific. As Caryn progressed from employee to partner, she saw her impact on Matt expand. She witnessed Matt's vulnerability to external influences and how they could alter his view of his own children. Her nightmare scenario involved convincing Matt, maybe in his latter years, to abandon the children altogether. She wanted a secret clause added to the divorce decree for private reasons. These accounts state that Matt first objected. He took Amy's actions as an attempt at controlling him even after their divorce was finalized. He said she was distrustful and bitter. Yet Amy remained unwavering. She insisted on this one term above all others. She felt compelled to do it out of principle, wanting to protect the kids she had reared on the farm. Both the clause's simplicity and its legal soundness were commendable. In subsequent years, it became known as the Legacy Protection Addendum. Matt signed it, eager to finalize the divorce and move on, probably underestimating the legal weight of his ex-wife's emotive but toothless request. As soon as the ink was dry, he likely forgot about it, writing it off as just another episode of Amy's drama that he had to endure. He proceeded with his life, constructing his new world with Caryn, unaware of the legal time bomb he had just armed, as he signed it and the divorce was finalized. Meanwhile, Amy deposited her notarized and signed copy in a safe bank vault and patiently awaited the outcome. She patiently awaited a day that she prayed would never arrive for a whole decade. That day had finally come. Upon receiving a nod from her client, Amy's attorney, Ms. Davis, reacted in the conference room. In a composed manner, she retrieved a single sealed document from her own briefcase. The thin, official document of Matt's will stood in stark contrast to the bound book, which had a plain blue legal cover and appeared almost charming. Saying, "Mr. Albright," her voice expertly sliced through the awkwardness. "Before your client, Ms. Chandler, begins celebrating her inheritance, there is another legal document that requires this room's attention." Caryn's attention suddenly shifted to her. "What on earth are you referring to?" "This shall be final." Matt has made his desires known. Disregarding her, Ms. Davis set the document on the middle of the mahogany table. "This," she told reporters, "is the Legacy Protection Addendum to the marital settlement agreement between Matthew Roloff and Amy Roloff, dated and notarized on May 28, 2016. The room descended into a state of bewildered quiet. Matt's attorney, Mr. Albright, appeared perplexed. He had written the will using Matt's purportedly owned assets. No such amendment had ever been brought to his attention. A glimmer of comprehension started to emerge in the children's eyes as they gazed at the document. Their mother had planned this. "This is ridiculous," Caryn grumbled, her voice somewhat too loud and harsh. "Remember that scrap of paperwork from the divorce? Concerning Matt's last will and testament, that is irrelevant. He paid up her debt. He could do with the land what he liked." "Quite the opposite, Ms. Chandler," Miss Davis responded with an icy tone. "This ancient scrap of paper is completely relevant to what's happening now. Actually, it takes precedence over the main provision of the will that was read to you just now, so it's not valid anymore from a legal standpoint." She took her time untying the blue cover's ribbon and then spread the paperwork out for everyone to view. The autographs of Matthew J. Roloff and Amy J. Roloff were legible at the bottom of the worn pages. The notary public's raised, embossed seal appears beneath them. The evidence was overwhelming. Miss Davis, her voice resonating with the inviolable authority of contract law, cleared her throat and started reading the crucial provision. Clause 4B, designated Inheritance Clause, states the following. "In the event that either party, Matthew Roloff or Amy Roloff, bequeaths their respective share of the marital assets, specifically and including all parcels of land and business entities associated with Roloff Farms, in a manner that fully and completely disinherits one or more of their shared biological children, Zachary, Jeremy, Molly, or Jacob Roloff, the act of such bequest shall trigger this clause." The impact of the words hit her hard, so she waited. As panic set in, Caryn's expression shifted from smug to bewildered to pallid. With a calm and collected tone, Ms. Davis persisted. "The complete share of the original marital assets that belonged to the bequeathing party will not be passed on to the named heir in the will once this clause is activated. Instead, the assets in question will be transferred to an irrevocable trust called the Roloff Children's Legacy Trust. At this very moment, Zachary, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob Roloff are the only beneficiaries of this trust, and they will each receive an equal share. The beneficiaries will elect the trustees of this trust by a majority vote. Secure victory." This chamber went boom. Skulking with an expression of unfiltered indignation and shock, Caryn sprang to her feet. "Oh no! How is that even feasible? He is capable of informing me. This doesn't add up. Behold the ruse." However, it was not a ruse. That was just brilliant. The one thing that had set in motion the redemption was Matt's last act of treachery against his children. He had unjustly returned all of his assets to his children when he tried to give them to Caryn, using the unbreakable authority of a contract he had signed. His will, which Caryn mistakenly believed to be her coronation document, served instead to set off Amy's cunning trap. Right when Caryn was about to celebrate her triumph, her whole fortune, the farm, the business, and everything they had worked so hard to build during their marriage, was taken from her. Currently, it was in the possession of the Roloff Children's Charity Trust. They rightfully owned it. As the first shock wore off, the children's expressions began to change to ones of incredible relief and validation. After all these years, they finally got a good look at their mom. This time, as the heroic figure who discovered a means to rescue her beloved farm, and not as the one who had sold a portion of it. She had endured years of miscommunication and criticism while keeping the ultimate secret card hidden away, playing the longest game of her life. However, the revelations were far from over. Another, even more incriminating piece of evidence was going to be revealed when Caryn and her lawyers started to mutter something about legal challenges and questioning the addendum's validity. A piece that would reveal Caryn as a villain who had deliberately disregarded a direct warning, in addition to being a selfish beneficiary. An incredible new piece of information has just come to light, according to an insider in the Portland legal world. A man named Mr. Albright has emerged as the executor of Matt's will. He seems to have felt obligated to give Amy's legal team a sworn statement out of professional conscience, or maybe a desire to shield his legal firm from potential backlash. This comment puts Caryn's career to rest. This explosive document states that Mr. Albright voiced serious concerns at a will planning meeting. He routinely inquired of Matt, "Are there any pre-existing contracts, marital settlement agreements, or other legally binding documents that could encumber these assets or supersede the terms of this will?" As part of his inspection process, it was just a simple question, but it meant everything in this particular circumstance. According to the sworn testimony, Matt appeared confused, which might have been due to his fading memory or his inability to fully commit to his new life. But Caryn was the one who showed up and took the call. She completely disregarded the matter, as stated in the lawyer's sworn statement. Reportedly, she made a little condescending sound as she waved her hand and chuckled. She is quoted in the affidavit as stating, "Oh, don't worry about that." Amy lacks the intelligence to have perpetrated such an act. Pause and take it all in. Amy isn't smart enough. Everything changes with this one sentence. The internal betrayal twist. It demonstrates Caryn's purposeful lack of knowledge and malevolent attitude. In Matt's decision, she was more than just an unaware bystander. She took involved actively but, when faced with a possible legal hurdle, relied on her own conceited underestimation of Amy instead of seeking the facts. She was made aware of the warning, which was a clear recommendation from an attorney, but she deliberately disregarded it. Any grounds she may have had to contest the appendix are completely destroyed by this testimony. She can't now act as if she were a naive, unprepared beneficiary. From her statement, it is clear that the lawyer was informed of the possibility of a pre-existing contract, but decided to disregard it, perhaps due to her arrogance and her belief in Amy's lack of intelligence. It shows a manipulator who was so sure of herself and her hold on Matt that she disregarded his ex-wife and fell headfirst into the trap that had been warned of. The upcoming legal dispute will now involve more than just contract law. The evidence of Caryn's poor faith has now tainted it. The combination of Amy's vision and Caryn's haughtiness was the missing piece. As a result of their combined actions, she was left vulnerable, without weapons, and about to lose all that she had fiercely battled for. It was going to be cleaned clean as the checkmate was announced. The revelation of Mr. Albright's affidavit hit the quiet conference room like a ton of bricks. Caryn Chandler's fortress walls have been broken by the legal document known as the Legacy Protection Addendum. The lawyer's sworn evidence, however, was the internal spark that threatened to detonate the whole building, crushing her to her very core. The mask she had painstakingly put on to appear as the shocked and distraught hair didn't merely crumble, it vanished. The remaining state was one of bare, primitive, and unadorned simplicity. She yelled out, "He's lying." Her scream ripped apart